Chuck Jones is most fondly remembered for his Looney Tunes cartoons, and for good reason. These are some of the funniest, sharpest, and most clever animated shorts to come out of the Warner Brothers studios. However, Jones' career goes beyond Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck, and he directed, produced, and designed plenty of impressive output after leaving the studio in the early 60s. Okay, he was actually fired by Warner Brothers, so I guess it's fitting I start with the pet project that led to his dismissal, Purr-ee. This was an animated feature he co-wrote with his wife Dorothy for UPA, a musical romance about cats in Paris. Jones also provided the character designs with the various cats featuring his signature style, and the UPA animators did an incredible job of emulating the movements often seen in Chuck Jones cartoons. The director of Purr-ee was Abe Livatow, a longtime associate of Jones, who collaborated with him on multiple projects. The film also had songs by Harold Arlen and Eli Harburg, who had previously written the tunes for The Wizard of Oz, and the voice cast included Judy Garland, Robert Goulet, Red Buttons, and Paul Frees. Their participation allows Purr-ee to sit nicely alongside the live-action musicals common at the time. It's a stunning-looking film with some beautiful artwork and a lot of inspiration from classic painters, while also having plenty of funny gags. The story centers on a cat who grows tired of the country life and decides to go to Paris, where she winds up part of a cat trafficking plot. The message is very much one about appreciating the simple life, and how maybe the grass is not always greener, along with the lesson of respecting that your significant other might not have the same interests. Sadly, the movie disappointed at the box office, and as I said, got Chuck Jones fired at Warner Brothers for violating his exclusive contract by going to work at UPA. Jones did not foresee that WB of all studios would be the one to pick up Purr-ee for distribution, but considering his fingerprints are all over the project, they probably would have learned of his involvement eventually. By that point, Chuck Jones was already a widely respected animation director, and so it did not take long for MGM to call him up. He was eventually assigned to direct and produce new Tom and Jerry cartoons. I don't know what the consensus among the Tom and Jerry fanbase is surrounding Jones' shorts, but I find them to be amusing and well animated. Are they on par with Hanna-Barbera's Tom and Jerry cartoons? No, but plenty of the cleverness and ingenuity Jones brought to his similarly themed Roadrunner cartoons are on display here. The slapstick remains on point, and we still get Jerry messing with Tom in various funny ways. It's also interesting seeing these characters redesigned by Jones, but with their iconic personalities remaining intact. Also deserving of credit for directing these shorts are Abe Livatow and Maurice Noble, while legendary Looney Tunes storyman Michael Matisse came up with plenty of the gags. However, his time at MGM was not only devoted to the famous cat and mouse duo. Chuck Jones directed, along with Maurice Noble, the short film The Dot and the Line, A Romance in Lower Mathematics. Based on the book by Norman Juster, this film is exactly what it says on the tin. It's basically about a line who falls in love with a dot. They somehow take this concept and turn it into a really entertaining and visually inventive animated short. Through the 10-minute runtime, this dot and line become fully realized and developed characters with plenty of personality, as further helped by Robert Morley's voiceover. The Dot and the Line won a very well-deserved Oscar for Best Animated Short, although there has been some dispute and controversy over how much Chuck Jones was involved with the finished film. Then there was The Bear That Wasn't, based on a book by Jones' former Warner Brothers colleague Frank Tashlin. This cartoon is about a bear who wakes up from hibernation in the middle of a factory, and everyone there thinks he's a silly man who needs a shave and wears a fur coat. It's a humorous, satirical take on corporate culture and the effect that being told the same thing over and over again can have on someone. The visual structure of the short is very clever, and we do feel sympathetic towards this bear and frustrated that nobody believes him. I don't see The Bear That Wasn't discussed much in relation to Chuck Jones' output, and even I only saw it for the first time recently, but I think its themes, ideas, and satire have held up very well. Jones made his feature directing debut with another Norman Juster adaptation, The Phantom Tollbooth. A mixture of live action and animation, it's at its most clever when depicting the wordplay of this magical land. There is plenty of visual cleverness, especially with how the words and numbers are incorporated into the story. The lead protagonist Milo meets all sorts of strange creatures, and Jones and the animation team bring a lot of life to those personalities. The structure is very episodic though, and Milo himself is largely a passive character, reacting to everything going on around him. The Phantom Tollbooth is also a surprisingly exposition-heavy film, with many scenes where characters have to explain things to Milo and the audience, and I prefer the score over the songs. The best parts are probably when Jones and Levitow let the visuals do the talking rather than the dialogue. It's not my favorite Chuck Jones project, but the Phantom Tollbooth has its moments. Norton Juster was largely disappointed with the finished film, though. While at MGM, Jones also started a professional relationship with Dr. Seuss, although they already met several years before while making the Private Snafu cartoons at Warner Brothers. The first of these collaborations was the holiday classic How the Grinch Stole Christmas. This did an amazing job of bringing Seuss's book to animation and telling the entire story in 25 minutes with added songs and comedic gags. Jones and the animators gave so much personality to the Grinch and successfully showed his transformation from looking down on the Who's in disgust to eventually loving Christmas. Boris Karloff was an excellent choice to voice the Grinch and narrator, and the music certainly added a lot to the special's charm and longevity. Your Meanwhile Mr. Grinch and Welcome Christmas have deservedly become iconic staples. There are plenty of good Christmas specials, but I think How the Grinch Stole Christmas stands near the top. Horton Hears a Who eventually got the same television treatment by Jones, and the result was a largely faithful and well-done adaptation. This time, Hans Conried voiced the narrator and titular character, which gave him a nice opportunity to play someone other than a villain, and he gives Horton the needed warmth. The jungle of Newell and Whoville are nicely drawn by the production team, and the special moves at a really good pace, as the other animals attempt to stop Horton from talking to that speck of dust on the clover. The message of Horton Hears a Who comes through loud and clear, and it ends up as a lovely take on the source material. Chuck Jones also had a hand on the Cat in the Hat television special, made at Patty Freeling. He produced and storyboarded the special, while Holly Pratt served as director. This one largely expanded and departed from the book, although the story of a cat coming in to excite two bored siblings on a rainy day remains intact. The special expands the tale with musical numbers and a search for missing MacGuffin. Thing 1 and Thing 2's roles are also altered slightly from the book. Alan Sherman voices the cat and gives him the required energy, and Dawes Butler is the fish. The departures from the source material allow the special to exist as its own thing, and the result is entertaining enough. Around this time, Chuck Jones also directed a special based on Walt Kelly's Pogo comic strips, titled The Pogo Special Birthday Special. I talked about the special before in my tribute to Pogo, but basically, while it has some strong animation and its occasional cute moments, Jones opted more for sentiment rather than the political bite of the comic strip, and the characters are slightly neutered a bit. It's not a bad special, just largely underwhelming for what was a collaboration between two legendary artists, although Kelly himself was dissatisfied with the results. Feels like Dr. Seuss was the only person pleased with how Chuck Jones adapted his work. Following his time at MGM, he started his own studio, Chuck Jones Enterprises, continuing with an emphasis on adaptations. One of these was A Cricket in Times Square, based on the book by George Selden. This was a charming little television special that captured the busyness of a New York subway station and the hustle and bustle of the big city. Jones makes good use of the animal characters, as we see a nice relationship between a mouse, a cat, and a cricket. The special also succeeds at highlighting the impact of the cricket's music on those around him, and Jones manages to hit the right emotional sweet spot. He followed A Cricket in Times Square with two sequels shortly afterwards, A Very Merry Cricket and Yankee Doodle Cricket. Chuck Jones also tried his hand at adapting Rudyard Kipling with three specials. Rikki Tikki Tavi focuses on a mongoose who befriends a boy and eventually battles a snake in order to protect it. Jones' animation lends itself to depicting the mongoose's energetic personality and quick speed. There was also Mowgli's Brothers, a more serious piece of animation than you might be accustomed to seeing from Jones, and I was impressed with the atmosphere of the special and his willingness to keep the darker elements of Kipling's tale. He also adapted The White Seal, but that one I found a little harder to find. Jones was responsible for two Raggedy Ann and Andy television specials, The Great Santa Claus Caper and The Pumpkin Who Couldn't Smile. These do the job of evoking the spirit of Christmas and Halloween respectively, although I give the edge to the Christmas one, mainly due to a fun turn from Les Tremayne as a wolf who tries to take over Santa's workshop. Chuck Jones did eventually return to Warner Brothers to produce a number of Looney Tunes specials and compilation films. He also found young directors who'd grown up loving his work, commissioning him to contribute to their big studio films. He helped storyboard the Daffy Duck, Donald Duck piano duel in Robert Zemeckis' Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and directed the animated opening for Joe Dante's Gremlins 2, The New Batch. The latter came about because of Dante wanting to prepare the audience for the wacky tone of the film. The opening was originally longer, but test audiences were confused why they were watching a Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck cartoon instead of the movie. Then there was an animated sequence in the film Stay Tuned. A fun and fast-paced comedy about a married couple who are sucked into their television set. It was logical for there to be a segment where they wind up in a cartoon. So Jones co-directed the animation with his trademark slapstick and character designs, and is definitely one of the highlights of the movie. And this is not just a quick minute-long gag. This scene runs about the average length of a Looney Tunes short, and features multiple laugh-out-loud bits. In Mrs. Doubtfire, Robin Williams played a voice actor, and Chris Columbus wanted to start the movie with him at work. So Chuck Jones was asked to make an opening cartoon that had Williams voicing multiple characters. Jones directed a 5-minute short with some humor slapstick and a great vocal performance from Robin Williams as he jumps between the 3 characters. Major names like Peanuts animator Bill Littlejohn and Disney animator Eric Goldberg even contributed to the cartoon. Columbus was really keen to start the movie with a full cartoon, but the film was running too long, and this sadly ended up another Gremlins 2 situation. At least we still got that minute of footage, and it was definitely a fun way to start the story and establish the lead protagonist. One of Jones' last projects was designing the characters and producing the animation for a live-action animated television special based on Peter and the Wolf. And his work on the special was actually a big deal, to the point he even gets top billing on the VHS over the actors. Anyway, this was a cute special that managed to adapt the classic composition with charm and educational value, and it's one I enjoyed watching frequently as a child. As you can see, Chuck Jones was an artist who was open to working in any format, and I'm thankful for the laughs, heart, and imagination he brought to all of his projects. See you next time.